What's up everybody, D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we are going to be doing another MonsterVerse news and updates. Starting out here, I figured it was on topic, so I wanted to show off Figure Mania Show's new Kong in Chains fan art. Figure Mania Show is my favorite toy photographer in the kaiju community. I always think his work is absolutely outstanding, and he's also one of the nicest people I've ever interacted with in the community. Such a great guy, very talented artist. Please go check him out and show him some support because he's just amazing. I want to show off this piece. I think it's great. It's obviously a recreation of the Kong shot from the Godzilla vs. Kong trailer, and it's beautiful. All right, let's get into the news, and it's time for a big fat I told you so. I don't know where people got the idea that the MonsterVerse had to die in 2020, but for 2 years now, I have been telling everybody the MonsterVerse will not die in 2020. It's not the end. Godzilla vs. Kong isn't the end of the MonsterVerse. Nobody listened to me. Well, I'm happy to say that it's not the end of the MonsterVerse, because for a minute there I was worried. I was worried that Godzilla vs. Kong was going to come out, and that Godzilla Singular Point was going to come out, and that because of the pandemic, that it would be true, and that the MonsterVerse was done, and then it would be a while before we knew what else follows. You know, I think Toho will take their time to announce something, and I was worried that the channel was dead, because there was not going to be much to talk about. But thank God the predictions were true. They went through with the plans, and they're making more MonsterVerse projects. At the very least, they're making one to start with, and I'm very excited for it. Before we get there, let's talk about some rumors, though. There are some rumors. Popcorn Planet reports a new MonsterVerse show in development. Fandom Wire then backed up that report, and they say that it is an HBO Max show with no guarantee that it gets greenlit, but it will probably go through. Running through their rumors, they say that HBO Max wants big IPs to carry the streaming service. They are looking at the MonsterVerse for the next big project, and they want to turn it into a series. A series that is most likely going to be live action and will be about Monarch's adventures through the universe, through the MonsterVerse. This is being written as a series right now and is being prepped for an official pitch to see if it goes forward and becomes a TV show or a real show. Warner wants the MonsterVerse to continue post Godzilla vs. Kong. They have big plans for the future, and they will be setting up the next big bad in Godzilla vs. Kong during a post-credit scene. Now, let me just start out by saying Fandom Wire is a clickbait website, and there's no credibility to their statements as far as I'm concerned. I've talked to other people who are knowledgeable on this stuff, and they have said it's possible that Fandom Wire got some sort of hint leaked to them by some insider, but it's not likely. What's more likely is that they heard some rumor and are now just running with it and writing articles about it. As for Popcorn Planet, I've never heard of him, so he could be reputable, he could not be, I have no idea. Point is, there's not much to these claims. We have to wait for something more official to be said. As for the theory that there's going to be some Godzilla vs. Kong post-credit scene that sets up the next big bad, there's nothing to say it's real. If you remember back, we heard like Russian rumors that there was going to be, there's going to be Ghidorah, he's back alive in chains in the movie. That clearly is not something that looks like is going to be in the film, but it was said to be in the test reel shown 2 years ago. It's possible that was to set up this post-credit scene. I don't think so. I know what you're thinking. You're like, why are you uploading this video a full year after you recorded it? Over a year. I recorded it January 30th, 2021. Sorry, I was busy. You're like, we already know there was no post-credits scene to Godzilla vs. Kong. Yes, there wasn't. That article that we're talking about in this video, it was lies. It was lies, because I know what you're thinking. You're like, hold on. There is a Monarch show in development. There's one coming out on Apple TV+. I don't think it's the same thing. I think that this article was a lie, and that they just wrote it. Maybe they heard rumors of the new show being produced and they just made up the rest, because this show would have been in development at this time. It would have been in development for years now, because that's how TV shows work and that's how movies work. It wasn't a real article. It was a lie. It was clickbait, and I'm glad that I called it a year ago. Good on me. Anyways, back to the video. I just wanted to say it's a lie. Don't put too much stock in it. And also, the new show is coming out, but that that doesn't mean anything. It's not like the two are related. They just both happened to happen. I am sticking to my guns and saying that if Godzilla vs. Kong does well, there will absolutely be more MonsterVerse movies. I want to make it clear that I'm saying movies because I know a lot of people say if it goes TV, then it's dead. ETN says this a lot. If it goes TV, then it's dead. If they do streaming shows or whatever, that's it. There's no more MonsterVerse movies. I disagree. It's all on Godzilla vs. Kong. I'm telling you, it's on Godzilla vs. Kong if they're going to do more movies. We will see if they actually get to. It just depends on how well that movie does. But based on the trailer reception, I think it's a good sign that we are going to get something moving forward. As for a live-action MonsterVerse Monarch show set on HBO Max, it's a very obvious guess. I could have said this 2 years ago, just as a guess as well. It's totally likely Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. style. You know, it's not a hard thing to predict. I don't think that there's any hard evidence to support this yet, so I'm going to say that probably this is just a rumor and that, you know, who knows? I think people probably are interested in continuing the MonsterVerse through Monarch's lens. That's how the movies have been told, especially Godzilla King of the Monsters. So yeah, I think telling the stories in the future through Monarch's lens is what's going to happen. I'm predicting that if Godzilla vs. Kong is successful enough, they will probably do a Monarch something, whether it's in the next movie, it's all told through Monarch's perspective again, or they could do a live-action Monarch show on HBO Max as well to go along with the movie. I don't know. My guess would be that there's going to be more projects greenlit in the future, seeing how each one does in succession. So if this Kong show that we're going to talk about, this is a success, they're going to do more shows like it. If Godzilla vs. Kong is a huge hit, then they're going to do more movies, and they will be more open to doing live action series. Let's get into the real stuff. This was announced by Netflix and Legendary, and it's very exciting. A new TV show currently titled Skull Island. We will see if they change the name, but it's currently titled Skull Island, not to be confused with that old Skull Island show that was supposed to be a live action show starring a female lead that never actually happened. It was also going to be HBO, I believe, something like that. It was like Showtime or something and it never happened. Not to be confused with that, and also not to be confused with the movie Kong Skull Island. This is its own thing, Skull Island, set in the MonsterVerse. We don't know when, but the current title is Skull Island. It is currently being led by Legendary and Netflix, which explains the Netflix release. Obviously, if it was Legendary and Warner Bros. Primarily, it would most likely go to HBO Max. But it looks like it's going to Netflix because Legendary and Netflix are working on it. It's going to be produced and written by someone named Brian Duffield, who worked on the movie Underwater. I've never seen it, but I've heard it's got a kaiju in it, so someone who's in the genre, and someone named Jacob Robinson as executive producer. I've never heard of him. It breaks my heart that Jordan Vogt Roberts isn't coming back to showrun this series. I guess he could be involved as a creative consultant or something. I would hope, please get him involved. I strongly believe that Kong Skull Island wouldn't have worked without Jordan Vogt Roberts. I think that guy's a genius. I think he does not get enough credit for what he did with that movie. He saved that film. Not that it would have sucked, but he saved it from being a one-off. He turned it into, well, we can do a project in the MonsterVerse because that's what they wanted. We can do a project in the MonsterVerse that makes sense, because the original pitch didn't make a ton of sense. It was like a World War I movie with original style King Kong. I think he saved the movie. I think he turned it into something awesome. Kong Skull Island is one of my favorite movies ever, so if you didn't know, I'm a big fan. I'm a big Jordan Vogt Roberts stan. I think he knew exactly what not to do with the movie, so I'm worried that without his influence, it's not going to have the same feel and it's not going to be as good. But you know, I'm open to it. And I'm very excited for it. This will be a Kong anime. It's not a live action series. This is an anime, which I think is probably going to be the way going forward. I have a feeling that what they're going to do with TV shows is anime. I think they're going to do TV shows as anime, kind of what Universal is doing with Jurassic Park. That way you can save costs. It's not as expensive. You can just get that out there and then it's no big deal. Meanwhile, you can put all your budget and everything towards the live action movies. I have a feeling that's what's going to happen, and I'm very excited for that. The anime stuff is just complimentary and that's all good. We do have an official synopsis for it, and it gives us lots of hope. It gives me great ideas. The synopsis is very brief. A shipwrecked crew, an island of monsters, and one king to rule them all. Skull Island is a new animated series set in Legendary's MonsterVerse from Powerhouse Anime. I don't know anything about Powerhouse, but cool. They've probably got a good style. I've looked through some of their clips. I think they did a show called like Castlevania or something. Looks good. As for the show, I got a lot of hope here. This confirms that Kong will be on the show, which is good. It's good news. It means that Kong's not going to be like dead or absent. He will be there, and that's important because that will make the island feel like Skull Island. A Skull Island story without Kong isn't all that interesting. This is also said to continue the story of these monsters and myths, which I find interesting. I don't actually think it means continue as in after Godzilla vs. Kong. Much like with most people, I'm predicting this is going to be a prequel, and the reason I think that is because it's about a shipwrecked crew. Yeah, who's getting shipwrecked there after the events of Kong Skull Island? Nobody, as far as we are aware. We know that the crew goes back there, Monarch crew goes back there in the 90s in Skull Island, The Birth of Kong. There's no no evidence that anybody else washed up on the island. In fact, the iwi can talk in that, and they don't say that anybody washed up on the island. And if you have that crew there, and in 2012, Monarch goes back to the island and sets up an outpost, I find it highly unlikely that a new crew washed up in between 95 and 2012, and now they're stuck there, and we're going to see that story. And certainly, after 2012, once Monarch establishes their outpost on the island, you're definitely not going to have a shipwrecked crew. So, I think it has to take place before Kong Skull Island, and I think it has to take place before Hank Marlowe washes up, because Hank Marlowe and Gunpei Akari, they would have definitely met someone else who gets stuck on the island. So I definitely think this takes place before the events of Kong Skull Island even start. So before Hank Marlowe washes up on the island, which is why I believe this will tell the story of the SS Wanderer, which is a ship that washed ashore Skull Island according to the novelization around 1933, and its crew is still lost to this day. They were not there when Marlowe got there. It's been hinted at that events similar to the 1933 movie play out, but no one ever made it off the island. It's like a reverse story where Kong wins. That is an excellent story. That's the story I would tell. Either that, or I'd say, you know what? Let's go all the way back. Let's tell that 1917 story that we got saved from by Jordan Vogt Roberts. Let's tell the story now, because we totally can. It wouldn't make sense to tell that story originally, because that was like set with a normal sized 25 to 50 foot Kong, and that just doesn't make sense when you're setting up the Godzilla vs. Kong fight. So it's definitely better that they went the Skull Island route, because that set up the Godzilla vs. Kong fight significantly better than the 1917 story would have. At least if I'm understanding the plot of that movie correctly. But anyways, I think the SS Wanderer is the perfect jumping off point here. I think this is already a story in the universe that has hints to it. It's something that we are familiar with. It's something that we want to see. At least a lot of fans want to see this origin story. It'd be very cool. The biggest question mark is how the hell did that giant ship wind up in the middle of Skull Island rather than the edge of it? I don't know, maybe a monster throws it there. I don't know how it wound up there, but obviously it does, because that's where it sits in Kong Skull Island, and the iwi form their village around it. I think it'd be interesting to see the Wanderer wash up, and then you get to see the crew interact with a much more primitive version of the iwi. I would actually tell it as a Kong 33 story. I would tell it exactly like that. You know, it's, Carl Denham, he's going to make a movie, he gets his crew, and Darrow goes along with him, and then they just get stuck there. Unlike in the 33 film, and unlike in the other incarnations, they're beached. They're not going anywhere. This is their home now. That's a much more interesting direction to go with it, because it throws audiences off. It's not what we were expecting, but it's familiar enough to where it's going to be super interesting to see played around with. I think Kong will be significantly smaller in this show so that the threats can be a little more realistic, because if you have a Godzilla vs. Kong sized Kong, you know, there's not really much that's threatening him. Godzilla is a threat, obviously. That's about it. He's 400 feet. You know, there's nothing that's really going to threaten him. So you tell a story with a younger Kong, maybe like 50 to 75 feet, and now you're back in the realm of King Kong. He can fight giant dinosaurs again. We can see the last of the dinosaurs on Skull Island die. He can get that giant chest scar that's on his chest in this show. That'd be awesome to see that little origin story. I think this could be a great origin story for the MonsterVerse Kong, telling a story of when he meets humanity. Maybe he's super aggressive, super evil at the start of the story, and they build the wall to keep him out, and then it turns out that they don't need it, because by the end of the story, he really comes around on humanity. He learns to love us and appreciate humans the way that we know he does in the MonsterVerse. That's another super interesting thing you could do with it, is having maybe this Darrow character teach Kong humanity. I'd love to see that. I just also think it would be cool to see a familiar King Kong story told within the MonsterVerse where we know Kong wins, and it kind of gives us the idea, not that it would happen in the other continuities, but it's like a little wink wink that, like, hey, if Kong didn't get taken off the island, look at what he would have grown into. You know, he would have turned into this massive god. I just think there's so much cool stuff you could do with the Kong prequel before the events of Skull Island. I would totally love to do that, and I'd totally love to watch it. The only other option I see here, and I would absolutely hate for them to do this, is for it to be the story of Hank Marlowe and Gunpei Akari stuck on the island. You know, they are a shipwrecked crew with Kong running around. So yeah, that would make sense as well. It's a story told in the past, and it fits that exact description. The reason I would not want it to be that story is because that's a Jordan Vogt Roberts story. That's one that he's been asking to tell for years now. Ever since Kong Skull Island has come out, he has been tweeting out that he wants to make that movie. So why would you rob him of the ability to make the movie by telling the story in a TV show? I think that'd be a bad idea, especially because Kong is a monster that the MonsterVerse doesn't really have to pay a ton for. They can just keep using Kong, unlike Godzilla where they have to renegotiate the rights. You can tell a ton of Kong stories without having to worry about tons of legal drama. And why not tell that one in live action? Why not give us that movie that clearly Jordan Vogt Roberts has in his head? He wants to tell it. He's said multiple times that he wants to tell that story. But yeah, that's the only other possibility I see, and I actually see that being as an equally likely possibility, that we're going to see that shipwrecked crew. Not really shipwrecked, their plane crashed, but they're stuck on the island. They're stranded. There's stranded crew, 2 guys, and they're going to have to learn to work together, and Kong is there, and, you know, the Skullcrawler eventually kicks off Gunpei, and then hey, Hank Marlowe's rescued. Either one of those stories would be really cool to watch. I just hope that Jordan Moog Roberts gets to make his movie rather than them telling the story without him in this anime. I'm gonna leave you guys there for this one. Thank you all for the support on the channel. You guys are absolutely nuts, and I just cannot thank you enough. For the rest of you, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man out.